And a very important conversation this morning with Steve Murray, the commissioner of the PSAC. It's brought to us by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Steve Murray, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you with us here this morning. I know it had to have been a very, very emotional day for the school presidents and the athletic directors, everybody involved in yesterday's Zoom meetings, and the decision was made to cancel sports all the way through the end of this year. Could you take us inside that Zoom meeting for a moment and describe what was happening?
Yeah, I probably have to take you back into May when we got through the spring after all the stuff with the spring sports, and we started weekly meetings with our athletic administrators and every 2-week meetings with our presidents, and started putting together policies and processes and how we would come back and what it would look like. And when we got down to brass tacks, probably about 2 weeks ago, where we were looking at policies related to how we would deal with positive tests or symptomatic student athletes, I think the reality kind of set in for many of us that that this is not a question of when, but if, not if, but when a student athlete would test positive or contract the disease, and what would it mean, and that we just couldn't take that risk anymore. So in the last week or so, we wanted to take a look at could we move things to the spring and provide student athletes a reasonable opportunity for a championship season. And the athletic administrators worked hard on that, and then we presented that yesterday to the president, saying, if you make the decision to end the fall, we can make a crack at this. It's not going to be a fun spring semester, but we can make a crack at this and get this done and provide the kids what they deserve. I think also in the last few days, we've seen conferences around the country, and particularly with schools related in Pennsylvania with the Ivy, the Centennial Conference, and the Central Atlantic canceling through the semester. I think it became a little easier for us to make that decision as well. So it was great conversations. Our presidents are very thoughtful. Everyone's horribly saddened and disappointed, but we think we made the best decision on the health and welfare of our student athletes being the primacy of all the decisions we were making moving forward.
Well, when you mentioned a couple of moments ago, these conversations have been going on for months. It really does point out what a difficult proposition it is, because the day is going to eventually come when you have to make a decision. That day happened to be yesterday, but there's a hopeful note in the release just coming this morning, and you just alluded to it as well. Awful lot of work ahead in order to get things rescheduled for the spring, and the athletic directors yesterday had to weigh in with you as well. Okay, how do we get down to work? What are our next steps? And I'm sure that a lot of work is already underway.
Yes, we like I said, we already have an initial draft. We've created a task force and broken that into 2 working groups. One working group will work on what the fall will look like. So when you show up on campus in August, what's it going to look like? How are we going to manage the workouts, skill instruction, practices, or whatever the practice might look like under these circumstances? Practice might not be the greatest word at this point. So we have one group working on that and another group working on what the spring semester will lay out. So there's decisions that need to be made. What can we play basketball and volleyball in the same calendar? We have some facility challenges on many campuses. One of the big concerns for us is athletic training. We have to have athletic training present at a lot of events, and how is that managed? So we have to be careful how we do that, because we still have to worry about the health and safety of our athletes. So a lot of moving parts. We're going to move fast on that. We hope we've kind of set a deadline of essentially Labor Day to have things in place so that we know how everything will look going forward. So a lot more input has to go, and probably next 6 weeks are going to be a little crazy for us.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that athletes are still going to be expected in some sports to be on campus here next month in order to get in some sort of workout schedule, and that's really going to be important for them, isn't it? From a psychological standpoint, their seasons are canceled. They have to be just heartbroken.
Yeah, it's awful. I had a son play football at Bloomsburg, and I can't imagine how disappointed it would have been for him to go through this process. But also, I also thought a lot about, oh my gosh, would I have put him through, the process of potentially contracting the disease while he's playing, something that he loves. But, it's hard. But yes, we need to do something for those kids. And that was the most important thing to the presidents before they made the final decision was, can we do this? And can we give them their training and opportunities in the fall? And we already had some tentative plans if we were able to play in the fall. So we're going to probably adapt that a little bit and be more strategic about that and be able to spread that out now since there's not a rush to get ready. So I think that those are the kinds of conversations that need to occur. Which sports need to go? We can't have all 400 athletes showing up ready to practice on day one. We've got to probably stagger it a little bit. Which sports go first? Which sports, should we get the spring done? Should we get the fall done? Winter, do we delay a little bit so the winter sports can move hopefully right into their seasons late in December or, in January? So those are the conversations that have to occur. But we definitely want to get them back in conditioning, strength and conditioning, skill development, and actually getting with their teammates too. That's what they're used to doing. We want to provide that experience for them.
Of course, working on those outdoor sports in January, that's not going to work either. So some of those schedules will really have to be pushed further into the spring. So that brings into question, for instance, football. You have a 10 to 12 game schedule for football. You've got playoffs built in around that as well. And so there are decisions to be made even as to, in the spring, when would a football season start?
Well, I would say that we have initially the first place where we won't be able to play a 10 or 12 game schedule. So we'll probably look like an 8 game schedule. Probably the divisional play, and then maybe one extra game in a crossover with the other division or championship game, something like that. It's kind of what we tentatively have. And probably not be able to go outside and practice until about March the 1st. Mm-hmm. So March the 1st and ending mid to late May would be the issue. So, and some of the sports probably not finishing completely until closer to Memorial Day. So some extension beyond the end of the academic year even. So, but those are all I would say they're not even penciled in. I mean, that's a very, very tentative kind of format. We have a lot of work don't quote me on that. That's how football would work.
Yeah, and of course those other sports as well. The winter sports, interesting to me because we mentioned on our sports report this morning, last year in November and December, the IUP men's basketball team played 10 games. The women played 11 games. And so that schedule, while it would be easier to accommodate an indoor sport in January than it would an outdoor sport, that schedule has to be truncated, shifted around, as you mentioned, competing with other sports for gym space.
Well, I mean, and fortunate enough for those folks at IUP is they've got two nice facilities with the old Memorial facility and then the new facility, so they can do that. So you're right. So I would say that sports that are the fall sports and the winter sports will probably see smaller seasons. We already knew basketball was going to lose anywhere from 4 to 6 games anyway under the new scheduling format. So it will probably go down a little bit lower than that even. It all depends on when we're able to perhaps start backup play from practices. So we've got to give them enough time to practice and those kinds of things. And then we still, the winter sports and the spring sports at this point, we're going to work under the assumption that we have to get them done in time for the NCAA championships. So, we've got to also fit into that calendar as well. So it'll be there's a lot of work yet to go to see how those will all look for us.
Steve Murray, Commissioner of the PSAC, with us today. Of course, there are also the issues of whether fans can attend these things, and those issues will have to probably be decided a little bit later in the season, but they are things to be considered. Health of the officials, availability of the officials. Those are considerations other sports are having to do right now, and you will too.
Yes. Fans issue probably be much more guided from recommendations from Harrisburg in the state, recommendations. So we'll have to watch where that is, and what county, possibly what counties, what color your county's in at the time. And officiating, yes. I mean, this is probably kind of a surprise to everybody, but one of our most difficult issues on officiating will be conducting field hockey and lacrosse at the same time. They are usually in different seasons, and they're almost the same officials. So how do we schedule that very carefully to make sure that we have officials? There's not very many field hockey and lacrosse officials out there, and we have to be careful about that ability to do it. So that's probably the most complicated sports for us right now with the officiating availability.
It's an amazingly complicated thing that you're going to have to be doing. Those athletic directors and school presidents, they've got their work cut out for them, and so do you at the PSAC. My goodness.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, fortunately for us, and one of the things I'm most proud of in the process is our folks did a remarkable job these last 4 months. I think maybe one of the reasons we're probably one of the first conferences to make this decision is we've done a lot of heavy lifting prior to this, and I think we came to the conclusion a lot sooner. I think some conferences may need to see some things that we did, and they've been asking us for our documents and policies and practices. So, but the good thing is that everyone's worked together amazingly well, from the athletic trainers to strength and conditioning. The coaches were meeting regularly and providing feedback back through their athletic administrators. Our athletic administrators were working in separate task force together. And I think actually we've come together more as a league than perhaps we've ever been during my tenure. I really am pleased and proud of how our athletic administrators and all of our staffs have worked in these last few months. And I think that will do nothing but continue for us in the next few months.
It is good stuff. Good work being done. Any truth to the rumor that they almost played fall sports because you wanted to be sure Jack Benedict had sports to call?
I know. I mean, I'll tell you what. He's probably curled. Is he in the prone position and curled up like a baby on the floor right now? Probably. I'm sure he'll have something to do for us, and I actually admire Jack greatly, and can't wait to hear his voice and make things all better in the world for us.
Hey, Steve, let me put you on hold for just a moment and then bring you right back. I believe we have Todd Garzarelli coming in on the other line.
Okay.
Good morning. Can I assume this is Todd?
Yep.
All right, Todd, we're going to get you back on with Steve Murray here in a second. Steve, you're back with us too?
Yes, sir.
All right, Steve. And Todd Garzarelli, IUP Athletic Director. Todd, good morning to you. I know that this had to have been pretty gut-wrenching for you and everybody with the IUP community yesterday.
Yeah, it's a tough decision, obviously, but it's the right one, and I applaud Steve and his leadership. And early on in the stages when the NCAA started to shut down sports with the winter programs, us as a conference really came together with Steve's leadership and started to have dialogue early. And, we really started the planning process and put as much effort in it and tried as hard as we could to make it a realization for the fall. But as we got into it, it just, reading the tea leaves and the way things were going, the health and safety of the student athletes were paramount, and we had to make that decision to protect them at the end of the day.
And so now the work begins of putting together a spring, and probably January 1st is when people are going to be saying, when's IUP playing? It's a little bit more complicated than just to say, hey, there's a New Year's Eve quadruple header, isn't it?
Well, and that's the thing, and that's what I keep talking to our coaches and our student athletes, and really people in the general public. Every decision leads to 5 more questions, and even though the decision came out yesterday to suspend activities for the fall, there's still a lot of work to be done. To get our student athletes back on campus this fall, which they're going to be coming back to school, to getting them working out into a routine, from a mental health and wellness standpoint to prepare them for their upcoming seasons, but also flushing out what that looks like. I mean, there's still a lot of conversations. You have a lot of sports that are going to overlap. You have a lot of officials out there that are going to overlap, so it all has to be meticulously, dove into and a lot of due diligence and putting some work in on the front end to make sure we have a smooth and health and safety fall for our student athletes.
Steve Murray, you've got veteran athletic directors in the PSAC. You've got guys that are pretty new on the scene like Todd Garzarelli. That's a pretty good mix to work with, isn't it?
Yeah, and Todd's been excellent for us in the conference. Todd's obviously got a relationship as an alum of the PSAC, but he's been at a couple different divisions, so Division I and Division III, and outside. It's always good to have that outside experience because you get a little bit set in your ways, and it allows us to have different thought processes in that decision making. So I think it's been excellent. Our athletic administrators have been outstanding to this point in this process, and they have done yeoman's work. And because not only working for the conference, but for their institutions and just the planning that's had to have been done. So they have been constantly. I think we've been all on Zoom. I told them yesterday I don't want to talk to them all for a week. Because let's just let the dust settle and get away from each other, and let's let our minds kind of cool down, and let's come back next week ready to go.
Yeah, well, you've got the work ahead of you. Todd Garzarelli, thanks for calling in and joining us in our conversation today. Let's get together here pretty soon back on Indiana in the Morning, okay?
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Steve, for your leadership, and looking forward to connecting and looking forward to the fall.
All right, Garz, take care.
Steve,
thanks, guys.
Steve Murray, thanks so much for your time together with us as well here in Indiana in the Morning. We'll catch up with you soon, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't hesitate, Todd. We'll be happy to help you out.
Beautiful. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160. AM 1160. AM 1160.